Hello, I'm Sudarshan the Starshine Star, and I hope all of you are enjoying your beautiful Sunday. It is September 7th, and it's 2025. Happy peak day of the full moon. It's a blood full moon. Woof! That sounds pretty interesting, doesn't it? And we had an amazing eclipse today. So, wow. Very amazing. This eclipse season is going to bring things out that I can't even predict. I can only feel and imagine. So I begin all of my clips with the 3 opening prayers that are in Sanskrit and Telugu, and they are short. It's the Guru Mantra, the Ganesha Mantra, and the Gayatri Mantra. And I do that to bless, uplift, protect, and purify you, me, and this clip. I have a YouTube channel called It's the Dazzling of the Light, or you can just go to YouTube and type in at Sudarshana Starshine Star. I have well over 260 clips there now on a variety of topics. Pretty interesting, pretty juicy, nothing mundane, nothing about what kind of snacks or meals I eat throughout the week, nothing like that. Although that would be interesting if I were a nutritionist or something, but anyway, I think you know what I mean. So before I do the prayers, I'm also going to do this. I command on the sacred, holy, divine blood of Jesus the Christ, Yeshua, to flow over all of us and all of our beloveds and all this social media and all my social media accounts and all of your social media accounts and all of your beloveds, to really cleanse any negativity, any fear, any shadow, any heaviness, any feelings of lack or poverty or depression or anxiety. Cast out all satanics, please, Yeshua, and all satanic attachments. Cast out all demonics and all demonic attachments. Cast out the spirit of pain. Cast out the spirit of fear. Cast out the spirit of ill health. Yes. Please send your healing presence now, Jesus the Christ. Thank you, Yeshua. Please heal the wounds in our soul. We receive your blessing and healing, Jesus. Thank you so much. And of course, I ask this for all of you, listener, according to your divine will for yourself. This is between you and God. I'm just giving the opportunity. So God bless. And now the prayers. Om, 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 Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshvaraha, Guru Sakshat Parabrahmam, Tasmahi Sri Guruve Namaha. Om Suklam Bharataram Vishnum Sishivarnam Chaktubhujam Prasanavaranam Dhyaye Sarva Vignopashantaye. Om Bhur Suvaha Tatsavitur Varenyam Bhako Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Naha Prachodayat. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Excellent. Well, I wanted to put this out yesterday morning. I think I'm going to call this clip Flooding the Zone. It could even be Flooding the Zone Part 1. I'm not sure right now. But I've been so busy. So I want to put this out. I was thinking, oh gosh, should I even put this out now? But I want to. It will be for posterity, and there's a lot consolidated here that it's good to know where you can touch base with it or refer to it. So I'm going to begin with a wonderful independent journo named @Tyson de la Cruz, and he had titled this little piece several days ago, FBI busts Georgia cartel drug traffickers grenade launch. And here is Tyson speaking. What you just heard were flashbangs. No, excuse me, this was off of the news, a news channel that Tyson put on his channel to show it. What you just heard were flashbangs used by SWAT in Jackson County. Actually, what I think they said is, come out with your hands up, we have a warrant. Tyson, America, we just uncovered a sophisticated drug trafficking operation in Georgia, and it reads something out of a cartel movie. Federal agents just took down a massive drug ring in Athens that was armed with, get this, a grenade launcher, 26 firearms, including 12 rifles and enough. I'm going to spell it right now, and from now on, I'm going to refer to it as Fent, okay? It's Fentanyl. You know that word, but I'm just going to call it Fent. And enough Fent to kill and enough Fent to unalive 6.9 million people. But here's what's really disturbing. This operation was ran by repeated offenders, and I want to interrupt one more time, listener, to say when I am quoting someone, I have to say exactly what they said, how they said it, otherwise it wouldn't be a proper quote. So even though I know for myself when I'm speaking and doing podcasts and things, sometimes afterwards I'm laughing at some of the things I said or some of the words I said. I'm like, I can't believe I said that. What does that even mean? It's amazing what can come out of your mouth when you're passionate and you're just trying to get a message out. But I'm not responsible for Tyson's grammar. I just have to read it. Okay, here we go. Back to this. This operation was ran by repeated offenders who had already served prison time for drug trafficking, got out, and immediately went back to poisoning Georgia communities. We're talking about a criminal enterprise that was distributing fent, cocaine, meth, and heroin, while Georgia's overdose unalivings hit 2,649 in 2023. That is a 53% increase from the previous year. And then from a news channel, you might know which one it is. It's got the peacock emblem. They were saying, in a major crackdown on gang activity, the FBI says it arrested 17 alleged gang members in connection to a violent drug trafficking ring. The FBI's Atlanta office joined the Safe Streets Gang task force to make those arrests. And then Tyson says, this bust exposes exactly how Mexican cartels have established permanent distribution networks in American college towns, while our justice system keeps releasing the same criminals over and over again. Let me break down what federal agents seized during this operation because the numbers are kind of staggering. We're talking about 26 kilograms of cocaine with a street value of $780,000, 1.7 kilograms of fent worth $60,000, 50 grams of methamphetamine, and 5.4 ounces of crack cocaine, 24 pounds of marijuana, and 128 controlled pharmaceuticals. What makes this operation particularly terrifying is the weapons. They seized 26 firearms in total. This wasn't a drug operation. This was a paramilitary organization prepared for war with law enforcement. And then on the news again, they said about this. And while the homeowner didn't want to go on camera, he tells me law enforcement kicked in his downstairs door and arrested a person living with him. When I asked why, he didn't care to elaborate. The FBI posted these pictures to their Facebook account saying agents were out arresting gang members as part of, quote, Operation Summer Heat, end quote. And then here's Tyson. The operation involved 13 federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies executing 12 search warrants across Athens and Atlanta. This included the FBI, Athens, Middle Georgia, Safe Streets Gang Task Force, the DEA, I'm sure most of you know that's the Drug Enforcement Agency, Georgia Bureau of Investigations, and multiple sheriff's offices. When it takes 13 agencies to take down one drug ring, you know you're dealing with something sophisticated. Here's what's going to make your blood boil about this case. Multiple defendants in this operation are repeat offenders who already served prison time for serious felony drug convictions. Ulysses Borja, Orlando Muckle, Joey Campbell, Bernard Walker all served prison time for prior drug trafficking, got out, and immediately went back to dealing drugs. And I'm going to interrupt your listener to say this is why I'm so glad that President Trump is getting rid of cashless bail across the United States, because that was a ploy of the evils to really help to bring this chaos and destruction of my country, America, across the board, meaning that even if you unalive someone, you can go in and go to court and, oh, you unalive someone? Okay, well, you're free to go. Just, we'll honor you to come back for your trial, but you don't have to put up any money or anything like that. Just go on. Why don't you have lunch down the street? They go out on the street, and so many times have we've seen, they just unalive someone else in a rapid succession. Because these are people that are either insane or they're hardened criminals that were led into my country illegally from other countries. The jails were emptied out. The insane asylums were emptied out. And that is all on purpose. That is not an accident. It's all on purpose. So thank goodness President Trump is drawing a line through cashless bail. It was very evil. So anyway, Tyson says, got out and immediately went back to dealing drugs. And now on the news again, it was saying U.S. Attorney Will Keyes unsealed 2 federal indictments and 1 criminal complaint charging that group with a variety of drug conspiracy and distribution charges. If they are convicted, they all face a maximum of life in prison. Tyson says, Patrick Wilkins is a convicted felon who was illegally possessing 5 firearms. So we have a guy that already been convicted of felonies, prohibited from owning guns, but he has 5 firearms while trafficking drugs. This is exactly what happens when our justice system treats drug traffickers like minor offenses, instead of the TERRORISM that it actually is. The main player of this operation was Alicio Llanas Panejo, also known as Choquito, a 48-year-old, you guessed it, from Mexico. This shows connection between Mexican cartels and drug distribution in Georgia communities. This wasn't just local dealers. This was an international criminal organization with tentacles reaching into college towns. To understand why this bust is so significant, we need to understand the scope of Georgia's drug crisis. In 2023, Georgia recorded 2,649 fent overdose unalivings, a 53% increase from 2022. That's more than 7 people unaliving from fent every single day in Georgia. The 1.7 kilograms of fent seized in this operation could have produced approximately 850,000 lethal doses. But that's just what they caught. How much fent has this organization already distributed into Georgia communities over the years while they were operating? What makes this even more disturbing is that Athens is a college town. The University of Georgia has over 40,000 students, and this drug ring was operating right in their backyard. College students are particularly vulnerable to fent because they often don't know what they're taking. It's mixed into fake prescription pills and powders and other drugs. The fact that this organization was distributing fent where a person under 18 was present shows that they have no regard to children's safety. They're willing to expose kids to DEADLY drugs and violence that comes along with this drug trafficking. This wasn't just a local operation. This was a sophisticated distribution network that had been operating for years. From January 2024 to May 2025, the Llanas Paneda Group distributed more than 50 grams of methamphetamine in the Athens region, but there was a second group led by Orlando Muckle, who had been operating even longer, from October 2020 to present. This group distributed more than 400 grams of fent and more than 5 kilograms of cocaine in Athens. So we're talking about multiple criminal organizations operating simultaneously in the same area. And then this was from news journalists on the mainstream media. People living on Jimmy Reynolds Drive and Tyler Circle and Arcade say the Jackson County Sheriff's Office, the FBI, and SWAT were outside this home around 6 a.m. And then Tyson says, the distribution locations included Certain Drive, Essex Court, and Comis Parkway, and Jennings Mill Parkway, basically all throughout Athens. This shows how these cartels establish permanent infrastructure in American communities that are not just passing through. They're setting up shop and treating our cities like their personal territory. This bust is part of Operation Take Back America, President Trump's nationwide initiative that marshals full resources of the Justice Department to eliminate cartels and transnational criminal organizations. This is exactly the kind of coordinated approach we need to dismantle these type of networks. The charges in this case carry some serious prison time. Due to the massive amounts of drugs and weapons involved, most defendants face a mandatory minimum sentence and potentially life in prison. That is real accountability for people who are poisoning Georgia communities while armed with military weapons. And then on the news, it said about this, so we're not just hitting random people. We're not just pulling a slot machine, hoping we get something. Oh no, there's a background information that's done. A lot of lead work is done in I don't even know what I wrote down. A lot of lead work is done in this particular instance. And then Tyson starts talking again. He says, this is a targeted operation based on extensive investigation and intelligence gathering. The fact that this investigation involved wiretaps and coordination between 13 agencies shows the level of sophistication required to take down these networks. You can't just arrest street dealers. You have to dismantle the entire organization. America, this Athens drug bust perfectly illustrates why we need President Trump's tough approach to cartels and repeat offenders. We had Mexican cartels operating and working with American repeat felons to flood a college town with enough fent to unalive nearly 7 million people, all while armed with grenade launchers and military weapons. Oh my goodness. The fact that multiple defendants were repeat offenders who had already served prison time for drug trafficking shows exactly what's wrong with the justice system, with our justice system. These people should have been locked up for decades after their first conviction, not released and immediately resume poisoning communities. Georgia's fent unalivings increased 53% in 2023, and operations like this one are directly responsible for that carnage. When you have international criminal organizations establishing permanent distribution networks in college towns, you're going to see a massive increase in overdose unalivings. The good news is that 17 people are now behind bars, and the network that was bringing military-grade weapons in massive quantities of fent into Athens has been destroyed. But this is just one operation. The cartels have similar networks operating in cities across America. That's why we need to treat cartels like terrorist organizations. When you're killing, oh my goodness, I didn't mean to say that word. When you're unaliving thousands of Americans every year with fent while armed with grenade launchers, you deserve to be hunted down with the full force of American military and intelligence capabilities. Then Tyson says, guys, I'll catch you on the next one. Now, this is FBI Director Kash Patel. Officials announce indictments in international drug conspiracy, and this was put out on September 3rd. Kash Patel says, good morning, everybody. It's great to be in Ohio on one of the FBI's primary initiatives since I became the director. Ohio, like the rest of the country, has suffered from a drug epidemic, and it's taken too many of the lives of our children and our youth and our communities. And this operation, Operation Box Cutter, would not have been possible without the intra-agency efforts of both the DEA, the United States Attorney's Office, and of course, our FBI field office here in Cincinnati, and our state and local partners. And we wanted to take time to highlight why this is such an important takedown. It is the first of its kind in terms of how we actually get after the threat that is Chinese precursors, which are used to make fent, which is used to unalive tens of thousands of Americans a year. We're done playing whack-a-mole. This brilliant case team here and the prosecutor here and the local and state authorities here created a program whereby if you want to end the pandemic of fent and cocaine and meth, you have to go after where it's made, how it's made, and what goes into making it. And the brilliant team here, our case team, was able to figure out the companies in mainland China that produce the fent, the locals here in Ohio and across America, along with the banking institutions and the flow of money, and to shutter them with this indictment in one fell swoop. It is years of work targeting an enterprise that the American public just doesn't have too much understanding of. And the purpose of this indictment and sealing it and bringing it forward to you is to show you the large-scale effort it will take, and that this operation is leading the charge, and the FBI is leading this mission across the country. It is not just happening here in Ohio. It's happening in dozens of districts across the country and all across the world. And I'll let the folks behind me get into the details of it, but I just want to leave you with a couple of statistics. We didn't just arrest a couple of people. We charged an enterprise-wide system in mainland China to include dozens of individuals and banks and companies that are responsible for making these lethal precursors and shipping them here. And you should ask yourself this: what other country in the world has a fent crisis? None. Just us. That's not by accident. And then you should ask yourself, what about the volume and quantity of what was apprehended in just this operation alone? It was something like 139 kilograms of fent powder. That's enough lethal doses for 70 million Americans. To put that in perspective, the state of Ohio is a population of 12 million people, approximately. That's 5 times Ohio. They also seized over 525 grams worth of powder that can be used to make fent pills. That's enough to unalive another 270,000 Americans. This stuff is lethal. It is far too long. It has not been attacked. And that's why the priority at the FBI is national security and violent crime. And this case demonstrates the intersection of those 2 top mission sets that the FBI had. And we're proud to stand here in Ohio today in the first of its kind effort to lead this takedown, to lead this initiative. And we are relying on you and the media to read these indictments and look at the complexities in which the CCP mainland operations will go through to import these substances to the Mexican drug cartels and put them onto our streets here through local operatives. And unless you unwind that web, and unless you track down every single person and business and entity and flow of money involved in it, you will never break the wheel. We are here today to break the wheel of fent trafficking in the United States of America. And I couldn't be prouder to be here in Ohio to announce this initiative and this wonderful takedown. And again, thanks to our partners here on the ground, the SAC, the United States Attorney, DEA, state and local law enforcement. It's a true honor to be here. And I'll let them give you guys the details. Thank you. Good morning. My name is Dominic Drace. I'm the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Ohio. I'm honored today to be standing here with Director Patel, with Special Agent in Charge, Ayatrola from the FBI, and with Acting Special Agent in Charge, Lawton from the DEA, to announce today a drug and money laundering conspiracy against chemical companies and individuals located in China and their co-conspirators here in the United States, particularly here in the Southern District of Ohio. This indictment sends a clear message. We will target fent trafficking at every stage, in every part of the world, and we will hold accountable any individuals or entities that are involved in the distribution of this deadly substance. My job as the United States Attorney is to protect the citizens of the Southern District of Ohio. Synthetic opioids that originate from or enhanced by so-called pharmaceutical companies in China continue to make their way onto the streets of our communities, and they continue to poison our citizens. That's a threat to public safety. It's a threat to our national security, and it won't be tolerated. Our 5-count indictment charges 3 individuals in the United States, including 2 from Tip City, Ohio, 22 Chinese nationals, and 4 Chinese companies with whom those Chinese nationals are affiliated. And I want to remind everybody that an indictment is a charging document that contains allegations. The defendants charged in this indictment are deemed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. The indictment alleges that from at least January 2022 until the present, Eric Michael Payne of Tip City, Ohio, served as the main supplier of illicit cutting agents to fent traffickers operating in the Southern District of Ohio. Payne allegedly purchased several kilograms shipments of these illegal cutting agents from the Chinese company defendants, who claimed to be legitimate online pharmaceutical and chemical companies. And I want to interrupt your listener to say, they looked so legit, like as if it were Amazon or some other online company with like customer service lines and blah, 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 blah. They looked really legit, but they were completely foul and very, very bad. Okay, back to this. In reality, as alleged in the indictment, with the help of the 22 individually named Chinese nationals, these companies knowingly marketed and exported illegal cutting agents to U.S. customers like Payne, knowing that those substances would be used to increase the yield of fent that would be eventually distributed on the streets of our communities. Now, why do these agents matter? These cutting agents matter, as outlined in the indictment. Drug traffickers use cutting agents to increase the yield of drugs that the drug trafficker can sell and make more profit. Generally, traditional cutting agents are used to increase the volume, but because they're inert substances like baby powder or creatine, they lead to a less potent product and customer complaints. Here, the conspiracy involved the importation of cutting agents that increase the yield of the fent, but that also maintain the potency of the mixture. As alleged in the indictment, these cutting agents, protonatazine, metanatazine, medetomidine, and xylazine, could effectively transform 1 kilogram of fent into dozens of kilograms of fent mixture with the same potency. So that leads to more DEA/DLY drugs on the street and bigger profits for drug traffickers. Now, these Chinese companies involved in the alleged conspiracy receive payment for the cutting agents through cryptocurrency transactions, but also through the use of traditional financial institutions. Payne's significant other, Orion Rafford, and another U.S.-based individual named Condria Davis are alleged to have assisted Payne in transferring cryptocurrency to the Chinese companies through the Chinese nationals named in the indictment. Rayford also allegedly allowed narcotics to be sold or stored, at her residence in Tip City as part of the conspiracy. All of the defendants in this indictment are charged with conspiring to distribute and to possess, with intent to distribute, 400 grams or more of a mixture or substance containing a detectable amount of fent. That charge carries a mandatory minimum term of imprisonment of 10 years up to a maximum of life imprisonment. All of the individuals and companies charged in the indictment are also charged with conspiring to launder money internationally, which can result into a sentence of up to 20 years of imprisonment. So it's my hope that these penalties send a message to drug traffickers here in the Southern District of Ohio, and also to those who are willing to assist them from abroad. We know that opioids, and in particular synthetic opioids, have contributed and continue to contribute to the unalivings of hundreds of thousands of Americans, many of whom resided right here in the Southern District of Ohio, which has been the epicenter of the opioid epidemic for a decade. China-based chemical companies and the individuals who aid them, who openly market and export dangerous substances to our community, will be held accountable for their actions. This indictment shows our resolve to continue the fight to rid our communities of these deadly substances and hold those responsible to justice. Thank you. I'll now turn it over to Special Agent in Charge Ayatollah. And I want to interject here, listener, that this was also the reason that was recently behind the President Trump's executive order signing, not allowing anymore the small packages that were allowed to be shipped in from China that were, if the worth was under $800, and there was no tariffs on those. It was a pretty good business. Unfortunately, for Americans, many of those packages that are called small packages with values declared of under $800 were another way that these that fent and other things were getting sent into the country. So that's another big reason why President Trump put a stop to that. It wasn't just because Americans were complaining about the poor quality of the cheap Chinese clothing objects that you can find online. Okay, back to this. All right. Now, this is Special Agent in Charge Ayatollah. And she says, "Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming. I'm Elena Ayatollah. I'm the Special Agent in Charge of the FBI Cincinnati Field Office. We are honored to have Director Patel, U.S. Attorney Jarris, and Acting Special Agent in Charge Andy Lawton with us today for this important announcement. Our community has been hit hard by the opioid crisis. These drugs unalive people we love. Heroin, fent, and toxic substances are flooded in our streets, and we all know the dangers. So do the corrupt business people who have been selling these chemicals and the cutters that are using these chemicals to mix with the drugs and the drug dealers that are pushing the poison on the streets. It simply must stop. Today we are announcing an important step in this fight. The FBI has used a unique investigative strategy to target the businesses behind these lethal chemicals. Many of these substances, as you heard, are sourced from companies in China. These immoral business people are selling dangerous cutting agents like nitazines, which are synthetic opioid, xylazine, and metamidine, which are mixed or cut into other drugs like fent, to increase the amount of product that the dealers can sell. Their greed for money has harmed citizens in Cincinnati, Dayton, Columbus, and every town in between in southern Ohio. The investigation was led by FBI agents working alongside with the DEA in Dayton and our law enforcement partners. I commend the agents and analysts for their hard work and their innovative strategy to protect our country from these harmful drugs. This investigation began in January 2024 as a joint effort between the FBI and DEA in Dayton. It focused on a drug trafficking network for moving large quantities of drugs into the United States. But soon the investigators learned that the co-conspirators were also ordering the products from companies in China for the purpose of cutting, extending, and processing the drugs. By adding these Chinese chemicals to other narcotics, they greatly increase their supply, and they increase their money, but it also increases the potency and the lethal impact of these drugs. These substances can be hundreds of times stronger than opiates and other sedatives. As a consequence, 22 people from China have been indicted for their roles in manufacturing and selling and shipping these substances into the United States. 4 Chinese-based companies have also been indicted, along with their bank and cryptocurrency accounts associated with the companies. And today, one of those Chinese companies and 2 of its representatives are being sanctioned by the Treasury Department for their role in the proliferation of the illicit dangerous substances, including nitazines and xylazine. And as the U.S. Attorney mentioned, 3 people in the U.S. have been indicted. 2 were arrested recently in Dayton by our FBI SWAT team, and the 3rd is in another state, and we are coordinating their arrest. So through the investigations, we have seized multiple kilograms of cocaine, methamphetamine, metamidine, and other drugs, and all this is a positive step. But unfortunately, the battle continues. We will continue to use innovative approaches to protect our communities. We will continue to work to crush violent crime and keep those dangerous drugs off the streets. And we will continue to work with our law enforcement partners because we care about our community and the people that live in them. Quickly, I'm going to show you the wanted posters. They have our China-based subjects on them. These 4 subjects are associated with the Zhongao Tingui chemical company, and these co-conspirators are associated with the other China-based companies that were named in this indictment. This is a screenshot of the website by the Guangzhou Tingui chemical company, and you can see they state, quote, safe delivery, end quote. No customs issues, exclamation point, implying that it's fine to import these illicit drugs into the country. They market, as you can see, to the United States, Canada, and Europe. And they brag about the purity of these substances that are lethal and causing unaliving in the United States. Skipping ahead. Now here's Kash Patel talking again. So yes, the importance of this case highlights the methodology in which a precursor comes across international borders and ultimately ends up in the streets of the United States of America and here in Ohio. The precursor companies sell a lot of these materials to the Mexican drug companies, the Mexican drug cartel south of the border. They produce those narcotics both south of the border and ship them into America, generally speaking, and also they found individuals to work within the United States to produce those end-state drugs, the fent, the meth, etc. From mainland China, what they are saying is, we only ship the precursors, which is largely true, and that's the highlight we want the American public to take away from this, that it is not just a drug trafficking organization enterprise south of the border. Those have been designated foreign terrorist organizations, and rightfully so. But they have partnered to advance their illicit scheme with companies in mainland China, because that's where the chemicals are made and produced. And without those chemicals, there can be no fent and end-state drugs. And that's the point of going to the origin. And as the SAC stated, if you cut off the snake's head, then you have achieved success. And that's what we are on here. Now, this is from the Next News Network on September 4th. And let me just go here. 600 military lawyers, immigration courtrooms. The Pentagon just changed the game. While sanctuary cities protect criminals in immigration courts, drown in million-case backlogs, somebody finally said enough. What happens when the most powerful military on earth turns its legal firepower on the border crisis? What happens when judges who've prosecuted war crimes start ruling on deportations? The establishment's screaming about military overreach. Democrats are frantically citing laws they've ignored for years. But here's what they don't want you to understand. It's not about politics anymore. This is about a system so broken, so corrupted, that only unprecedented action can fix it. And it's happening now. And then this was on the news, and I'm just getting this news shot here. It's called Feds Announce Record Bust of Chemicals Tied to Foreign Terror Group. And then this is U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro speaking. She says, thank you all for coming out today. We think that this is a very important issue. And I flew down from Washington because I think that this is so significant. And I very much appreciate you being here along with the people who are standing behind me. Every day, tons of chemicals that are used to create synthetic drugs like methamphetamine and fent are shipped from China to Mexico in China's undeclared war against America and her citizens. And every day in funeral homes across this country, we see the tragic consequences of what has happened in this undeclared war. The families who were forced to say goodbye to their loved ones because of this scourge. And so today we announce a very significant seizure of 2 shipments of chemicals shipped on 2 different vessels on the high seas en route to the Sinaloa cartel in Mexico, from China to Mexico. The port of lading was Shanghai, China. The port of discharge, Mexico. What am I talking about? I'm talking about 363,000 pounds of benzyl alcohol, along with 334,000 pounds of N-methylformamide. They would have been used to make 420,000 pounds of methamphetamine, which would have a street value here in Houston of $569 million, with a higher street value as you go up the northern seaboard to New York City. Now, the labs that were under construction that were being used to integrate these chemicals to make the methamphetamine, were under the geographical control of the Sinaloa cartels. And these cartels are capable and are known to make more than 1 ton of methamphetamines a week. Oh my gosh, a week. I'm saying that, not Jeanine Pirro, a week. Now, because President Trump and Secretary of State Marco Rubio have declared the Sinaloa cartel a foreign terrorist organization, it gives all of us in law enforcement the ability to move quicker and to seize quicker. And this cartel, and I'm sure all of you know, is one of the largest producers and traffickers of fent. And they use MURDER, kidnapping, TORTURE, and violence as a way of doing business. And let it be known that anyone who is working with them, whether they claim innocence or not, if they are providing material support to terrorism. Oh, she said, whether they claim innocence or not, if they know that they are providing material support. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I said that word. Whoops, they are providing material support to terrorism. Now, this government forfeiture today of property allows us to seize all of the property, whether it is on domestic or foreign territory, even seizing property outside of the United States. That is the significance of the FTO. And that means FTO means foreign terrorist organizations. Now, when you have a chance, I want you to take a look at the barrels behind me. There are 1,300 barrels filled with precursors to methamphetamine. It will take 24 18-wheelers to take these precursors to a storage facility in a safe location. I'm going to say that again. It will take 24 18-wheelers. And listeners, in case you're not American, 18-wheelers are the name of those really huge trucks. Gigantic. They're so huge, and it would take 24 of them. 18-wheelers, of course, is referring to the 18 wheels on these huge trucks. Okay, it will take 24 18-wheelers to take these barrels to a storage facility in a secure location. So today's interdiction highlights an incredible work that has been done by the Homeland Security Investigation, as well as Customs and Border Patrol, and my office in Washington, D.C. That was on this case. My office in Washington, D.C., that was on this case because this is what we do wherever it occurs. And we will continue to stay on top of these organizations and on top of the movement of these precursors throughout the high seas to prevent them from making it to the United States. And let me say that this interdiction has stopped the drug labs that were planning on producing meth from operating now. How do we get to this point? We do it because we've got smart people behind me. We've got people who understand drug trafficking. They understand money laundering techniques, and they understand transportation distribution, and they analyze. And many are just smart as hell, and thank God for every one of them. And I want to thank them for being here today and for the work that they do. And before you leave, I want to make sure that you take a look at those 1,300 barrels. And I want you to have a visual of unalived Americans instead of where those barrels are, because that's what would have happened. And then skipping ahead to where Todd Lyons, Acting Director of Immigration and Custom Enforcement, steps up to the mic. He thanked U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro and Customs and Border Protection, FBI, DEA, Department, which used to be Department of Defense, but now it's Department of War, and Joint Interagency Task Force, U.S. NORTHCOM, as well as the Texas National Guard. In recent years, the number of drug-related deaths in America have grown to more than 100,000 casualties, and that's just way too much. This tragic and senseless loss each year has ensured that since President Trump took office, that's his number one priority. And HSI, listener, means Homeland Security Investigations. So that's his number one priority. It's taking these weapons of mass destruction off the street. HSI's Operation Hydra is unique from our other approaches to combating drug trafficking because it targets the supply chain chemical precursors that manufacture illicit narcotics rather than the finished products. As a result, it's possible for HSI to prevent much larger volume of narcotics entering the international and the domestic drug supply lines. These two shipments originated from the same vendor in China and were destined to go into the hands of the Sinaloa cartel. Had these precursors made it to the destination, they would have made hundreds of thousands of pounds of methamphetamine with profits of over $500 million, which would lead to more American unalivings here, not only in Houston, but all across the country. Under this operation, HSI used sophisticated analytical tools and techniques, as well as our extensive investigative tools in our deep knowledge about cross-border trade, to ensure that we identify these shipments before they got into any illicit hands. This marks the first time a seizure warrant was issued for the material support of TERRORISM. So let me just say that again. Under 18 U.S.C. United States Code 2339B, we were able to charge some material support of TERRORISM, and that's the Sinaloa cartel. The ability to attain the warrant for this was only possible because President Trump's executive order designating Department of State to designate major drug cartels as foreign TERRORIST organizations. After seizing these two shipments, HSI International worked closely with our foreign law enforcement partners to consolidate the shipments in Panama and divert them here to the port of Houston. Our agents in Guatemala, Panama, and Mexico provided significant support to our Homeland Security investigation team here in Houston. Throughout this whole investigation, Operation Hydra continues to be a tremendous success to bolster our efforts to combat drug trafficking. Operations like this is key to our Homeland Security Task Force. The amount of partners that work together to take these illicit drugs off our streets is key to making America safe again. Note, U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro says, the seizure is not planned in terms of anyone's schedule, other than the schedule of getting it off the high seas, getting it here into Houston, getting it off the ships, and, locking it down so that we prevent it from going to the cartel. It's got nothing to do with politics, nothing. Other than the fact that this is the first president who decided that the Sinaloa cartel is a foreign TERRORIST organization. That gives us the ability to move quickly and gives us the ability to seize property anywhere in the world if it is connected to one of these organizations. And then Todd Lyons ended with stating, ICE and HSI will be over every major U.S. city. So you can count on that. And then I want to say, so that's the end of that, but I just want to say, I'm pretty sure you guys, most of you guys who are listening, you heard about the 475 people that were picked up in the ICE raid in Georgia at the new Hyundai plant. Yeah, that was the largest deportation bust at one time, it seems. And most of them were South Korean nationals. I'm pretty sure that it was 300 out of the 475. And those South Korean nationals, they either snuck over the U.S. border, like under the Biden administration, or they had special visas that specifically did not allow them to work in the United States, or they had visas, but then they overstayed their visa. And then now in all three categories, they are illegal and they need to be deported. And I'm sure you saw, because there's like a big brouhaha about it, how about the South Korean president is saying, we're very concerned about this. We're very concerned about our nationals. We want them to come back. And now there's these arrangements being made to bring those South Korean nationals directly from the deportation center where they are, to load them on planes to bring them back to their home in South Korea. And when President Trump was asked about this, and people were saying, aren't you so worried? You just struck this great deal with South Korea, and we're doing so much business with them now. And he just said simply to the point, it's just about deporting illegals. And that's the truth. And also, it's like, I'm saying this, not President Trump. What is the point of getting the business? Like, for example, this huge Hyundai plant in Georgia, which also had its own, I think it's called LG, its own utility. They're building their own energy plant to give energy to the AI there of the Hyundai plant. And in the deal that President Trump made, not only is that not costing U.S. taxpayers anything, but when that is completed, when those operations are completed at some point in the future, that LG energy plant, which would be its own utility plant, will be merged back into the main grid system of the United States of America, once again at no cost to the American taxpayer. So that is a pretty sweet deal, but honestly, what is the point of, President Trump went all around and made these great deals and wants to bring manufacturing back into America and really give those jobs back to American workers. Not to once again keep American workers out of it and once again give them, they went overseas, but now do it on American soil and just fill up all the jobs with illegal aliens and no Americans. And it's also not right, because when you're hiring those illegal aliens, they're getting less money than an American worker would ask for and receive to work in that, for example, that Hyundai plant. So the whole thing is not right. And in the end, finally, the South Korean president was saying that they were going to make sure all the visas were correct and everything for workers in future coming over to work in the U.S. And most specifically at that Hyundai plant, right? Or in the LG energy utility plant. Anyway, so some good news just today. So I'm going to put this in here, that that the U.S. House passed it's called the Stop Chinese, and I'm going to use my word for it because I already told you. The U.S. House passed the Stop Chinese Fent Act to go after the CCP for manufacturing and sending deadly fent to the U.S. And it passed 407-4, so a huge majority passed that. That's very good news. And then from Tyson de la Cruz, he's saying, talking about a homeless camp used as cartel headquarters. 27 people were busted in New Hampshire. And he's saying it's a very thorough professional operation that reaches from Mexico, U.S., Canada, etc. Cartels use homeless people, pay them, or they give them some drugs, or they threaten them, etc. $100,000 cash was seized during this Franklin drug trafficking investigation in New Hampshire. And this is a strategy that we're seeing across the country. Cartels set up distribution operations in homeless encampments because less law enforcement scrutiny. Police are often reluctant to aggressively patrol homeless areas, and there's constant turnover. People come and go, making it harder to track these networks. And then there's the sympathy factor. The public and media sympathy for the homeless makes enforcement politically difficult. These cartels are literally exploiting America's homeless crisis to distribute the same fent that's unaliving 100,000 Americans every single year. They're using the most vulnerable citizens as cover for operations that destroy American communities. This Franklin operation required cooperation between multiple law enforcement agencies, and it showed what's possible when federal law takes the lead. On a federal level, the U.S. Drug Administration was involved. On a state level, New Hampshire State Police. On a local level, Franklin Police Department and multiple New Hampshire police departments. This is exactly what we need more of. Federal agencies taking the lead on cartel operations while coordinating with local law enforcement. Yes. And then from the wonderful Cash Jordan, I just went to something he was saying, and he put this clip from Fox News on, and it said, the Trump administration has directed the military to prepare for lethal strikes against cartels. The military action could come without the approval of the Mexican government. The president of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum, is furious. She's calling Senator Lily, let's see, I wrote down her last name, and let me see, where did I write it? Lily, thank you, Lily Tellez, Tellez, Senator, the wonderful Senator Lily Tellez. So President of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum, is furious, and she's calling Mexican Senator Lily Tellez a traitor. Now here is the wonderful and very brave Senator Lily speaking. The help from the United States to fight the cartels in Mexico is absolutely welcome, and that is how the majority of Mexicans feel. The only ones who don't like that President Trump is sending help and trying to support Mexicans against the cartels are the politicians, and that includes President Sheinbaum. Yeah, that's what the senator said. She's very brave. Senator Lilly says, I pray under God's guidance that we get freedom for our country, for Mexico, to stop it from being the next Venezuela. And then note, Cash says, it looks like America is putting the pieces in place to take some sort of decisive action against these cartels in the near future. But the problem is Mexico's current government certainly doesn't want this. Well, not all of Mexico, because while their president seems to be firmly in the tank for Mexican autonomy over its borders and any criminal activity therein, there are many law-abiding Mexican citizens and politicians who want to see the status quo of alleged cartel cooperation gone. And that brings us to the real reason we could soon see something drastic take place in Mexico for the first time in centuries. Many law-abiding Mexican citizens would be in favor of it. They're sick and tired of living under the iron fist of a criminal empire that the government just can't seem to get rid of for some reason. A criminal empire that has allegedly infested the police, the military, and even the government to such a degree that they're able to pretty much do whatever they want. And while these cartels make things worse in Mexico, they're also making things worse in America at the exact same time. Then a Fox News reporter or journalist asks Senator Lily Tellez something, and the senator replies, yes, it is, and real Mexicans know about it. The reporter asks, are you afraid for your life? And the senator replies, yes, I am afraid. And the president has threatened me to proceed against me with criminal prosecution, to get me out of the Senate and get me in jail just because I told you in this space on Fox News what is the reality of our country with the cartels. The cartels are dominating. Senator Lilly says they're dominating everything here in Mexico. They are in all the offices of the government, in the states, in the cities, and in the national government. And then Cash says, so the idea that Mexico's government has been putting forth that the cartels are totally under control, not a big deal. We can stamp them out, and if we can't, they're somehow America's problem. That idea has just been blown to smithereens with this interview. This senator is risking her life, exposing her own government. And it sounds like they've been telling her that she might end up in jail just for saying what many Mexican law-abiding citizens have been saying for years, that their country has essentially been taken over. You've got this crony criminal empire of legitimate-looking politicians who are secretly doing the will of this empire, giving them a safe place to operate and make billions of dollars in ways that certainly don't make Mexico or America any better. But how do they go about doing this? And here's Senator Lilly again. She said, Mexican government and the cartels infested our nation. And the Fox News reporter says, can you explain this alliance between the president, her party, the Morena party, and the cartels? Senator Lilly, yes. The party has financed, the cartels have given so much money to these politicians to get into office and get the power. So they protect. The Mexican government protects the cartels. That is why President Sheinbaum doesn't want the strong American leadership to help Mexico defeat the cartels. And also Sheinbaum doesn't want the rest of the world to know what is happening here in Mexico. We are on the steps to be the next Venezuela. And then Cash says, what's fascinating is that people in Mexico understand that their government isn't going to stop the criminals running their country anytime soon, unless they're forced to do it, or unless somebody else does it for them. And she said something very important here. The Mexican government doesn't want to let the cat out of the bag. And we're seeing them try to keep the cat in the bag because recently the Mexican president, who must be under a lot of pressure, has taken actions that critics say never would have happened in the past. Not only sending troops to some areas of the country, but engaging in certain crackdowns on some organized crime. However, to me, this looks a little bit suspicious, because if you've got a government that is allegedly in league with a criminal empire, and they crack down on some of the criminals, well, how do we know this isn't government-sponsored elimination of competition for one criminal group over another? And every single week, it seems like there's another high-profile accusation that Mexico's president knows more about the cartels than she's letting on. Now, this could be a coincidence, but when you have enough coincidences, things start to look very suspicious. And then the report from Ken Klipperstein says the Trump administration has directed the military to prepare for lethal strikes against cartels. The attacks will reportedly be ready by mid-September. One of the military sources quoted says the military action could come without the approval of the Mexican government. Yeah. That sounds pretty right on. So please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for being here with me. I hope this was informative for you. I try to kind of group it together as like a touchstone in case you wanted to like check on something. I kind of lumped this all together. I might do something called Flooding the Zone Part 2. Yeah. Anyway, thank you so much for being here. Why not join my YouTube as well? It's free. And hit the notification bell. You know all that good stuff. Thank you in advance for doing that. I close all of my clips with the closing prayer, which is in Sanskrit and Telugu. And what I'm saying is, God bless all beings in all worlds. Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Yes, peace, peace, peace. And for me, some water, or maybe some honey. I'm losing my voice now. Thank you so much. God bless you and yours. I'm sending much love and big hugs to you and yours. I'll see you when I see you. And bye-bye for now.